Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Space Game Junkie Podcast. I, as always, am your co-host, Brian, and joining me, as always, is your co-host, Jim.
And my computer mining the bitcoins.
Are you really? You're not.
No, that's the new scandal. Is like people slipping code into people's.
Oh, I heard about that.
Bitcoins.
I saw a discussion on I think it was the PC gaming thing of Reddit asking like why their computer isn't doing. No, it was on the OBS subreddit. And they're like, why isn't my computer getting all the frames it can with OBS? And they're like, because you have a mining computer. You shouldn't be recording with a mining computer.
No, that guy's just an idiot.
Yeah, pretty much. Also joining us is your co-host, Hunter, right there.
That guy's an idiot.
Yeah, right? And also joining us is your co-host, Spaz.
Hello.
So, friends, we have a topic show tonight. Thank you for joining us. Hello, D-Man. Hello, Captain. Hello, Joe. By the way, folks, the Upper Memory Block podcast has had its first episode in a dog's age. I haven't listened to it yet.
It's really good.
Of course it's good. They're all good. But what is it? Is it Defender of the Crown? Is that what it is?
Well, that's, I guess, his first one that he's done about a game. His first one he did when he came back was just a topic show.
Oh.
And he was talking about, getting back into the game and doing stuff. Like, it's a conversation, and it's really good.
Oh, okay. I forgot about that one. But, yeah, kind of back on the horse with the game topic, which is great. So, hi, Joe. Glad you're back on the horse. We missed you. I missed you around here, too. Being a new dad will make you disappear for a while, I guess. But friends, tonight we're going to do another topic show because we're enjoying these. We love having guests on, but every now and then it's nice to take a break from a guest and just, shoot the garbage. So tonight, tonight we're going to talk about Forex games, which is something we've kind of broached here and there, but I don't think we've had many shows dive into the genre itself. So before we get into the topic, we need to clarify what a Forex game is. A little history. I didn't know this until recently, but Forex was a term coined by, what's his name, Arnold Emmerich, in the Master of Orion strategy guide that came out in like 1994, which, if you guys have not read that strategy guide, it's not just a great guide for that game, it's a great guide in general. Track a PDF of it down. It's amazing reading in just like game design and whatnot. It's incredible. D-Man, no, that's X4, not 4X. We're not talking about the X series. We're not talking about the next game in the X series after X Rebirth. We're talking about the genre of 4X games. So 4X typically means exploration, expansion, exploitation, and extermination. That's where the 4X's come from. So I was looking at a list of 4X games, I think on Wikipedia earlier today to get the gears going in my head, and they had all kinds of crap that I would not consider a 4X game, like Europa Universalis and a few other things. And that's a strategy game, of course, but I wouldn't consider that a 4X. Now, Jim,
I guess my definition
go ahead.
You can't express it with like 4Xs, right? But it's kind of that. So it's basically a strategy game that is played on a procedurally generated map, which means you don't know where shit's at, so you have to explore it. Even though maybe the map is entirely revealed at the start.
Yeah, you still don't know everything.
Yeah,
the general beats. Sorry, go ahead.
So basically, I want a procedural map. I want diplomacy. I want some warfare, and I want an economy. And you have to manage the guns, the butter, and the explorers. And that's pretty much it to me.
And the sad thing is, we'll get into that, but the sad thing is I don't think there's any game that gets all of those right. There's games that get maybe one of those right, or two of those right, But yeah, I don't think there's been I'm not sure there's been a 4X that gets all of those right, which is really.
Diplomacy is the one they always get hammered on.
Oh, it's almost always awful. Oh, almost always awful. Like I think when I think of the best examples of diplomacy, in a tangent real quick, I think of Emperor of the Fading Suns, and I think of Star Ruler 2. Have you guys played Star Ruler 2?
It's been a minute.
Yeah,
It has been a while.
Star Ruler 2 has it's a card-based minigame, diplomacy, and you have like points you can spend to do certain things, like treaties and taking over systems and things like that. It's like it's almost its own little game within the game. You know, like kind of like how Gwent is in The Witcher 3. But for the most part, diplomacy is like, I want this. Oh, you can't have it. I'll pay you for it. Oh, all right. That's right. Isn't that what it usually boils down?
What can I give you to make this deal work?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think the ones that seem to work the best is the ones where you have sort of a reputation bar with the other people. So it's like it can start out like they don't really trust you, right? So it can be low. So the amount of stuff that you can get from them costs out of the reputation bar. So you can't really spend a lot of goodwill until you earn it. But if you make a series of not complicated trades or treaties or whatever, you're inching that bar up, and then you can ask them for something, or like, hey, can I have the keys to the car, right? But you don't just,
usually an option.
Yeah, and bribery would just directly bounce that bar up. If you get caught doing espionage, that bar comes down, and you pay out of it. It's almost like a bank, right? Like you get 5,000 points of favor with them, and then, well, I want a technology from them. How many points does it cost?
Right.
Out of there, and it's I forget what game did it, but it's like your population has I think it's Star Drive 2 actually, where your population has a tolerance, right? So it's just like, oh, I'm perfectly willing to make this deal, but my own population, their reputation bar to these aliens, my own people won't let me do it. So it's not necessarily the aliens don't agree, but my own people won't agree, even though I'm the leader. I don't have absolute dictatorial control.
Right. And while you were talking, I thought of, I wanted to start off with like unusual examples of the genre and why they succeed. Like, because there have been a lot, especially in the last few years, a lot of 4X games, like a lot. But a lot of them follow mostly that same Civilization Master of Orion formula. Master of Orion 2 especially. Oh my God. So I was trying to think of examples of 4X games that are different in some way. Do you guys have any? Because I have a small list here, but I wanted to hear if you guys had any suggestions first.
Sins of a Solar Empire is pretty different.
Now I was wondering about that. Would you call that an RTS with 4X elements, making it like adjacent to the 4X, or would you call that, because it does have exploration? Yeah,
sure.
It does.
Yeah, it sure does.
Yeah, it really successfully melds a 4X element with an RTS, doesn't it? Okay.
Yeah, but I don't know if I would actually even. I wouldn't call it an RTS element. I would just say it's a 4X element with a heavy strategy element, because it's not as tactical as some other 4X games want to be. It's much more macro.
Well, it's almost got that off-world trading company thing going on, where it's like, here's a real-time strategy game that would otherwise be turn-based, and you would be pretty comfortable if it was turn-based, but we made it real-time to make you sweat.
Yeah, because the thing about an RTS is usually RTSs are a lot smaller in their scale, as where Sins can get massive really quickly depending on what you do.
And how many players are involved.
Yeah, and how many players are typically involved. It's kind of like if you were to make Supreme Commander a 4X game, right? except for Supreme
That
Commander
would
is-
be amazing. Please, someone do that.
But the thing about Supreme Commander is it's just straight up a ground, massive army RTS game. But like as with like Sins, you have your different planets and everything's like managed on a completely different scale. It's just it's done completely different. It's unique.
Okay, I can agree with that.
Yeah.
But I'd definitely call it a 4X game though.
Yeah, because I mean, you got the tech tree, you got the diplomacy.
I'd call it a fast-paced RTS game or a fast-paced 4X game though. Like you're typically you're not really playing. I don't know how to describe it though. Like it's just it's different but the same. Like it's weird.
I think it fits.
Sorry, I'm having to define what a 4X is again in the chat because someone asked, "Is Evercron a strategy game or a 4X game?" No,
No,
not
but
in the slightest.
Starpoint Gemini Warlords,
We're gonna get to that.
specifically Warlords.
Yes,
Yeah.
we are gonna get to that. But
Well,
I
hold on
would.
a second. Evercron though.
Well,
Is
it's
that a predefined map or is that you're still exploring?
it is a predefined map, but here's the thing: not everything is on the map. So there are apparently systems out there that haven't been discovered yet in that game. So you can go out and find them. Apparently, it's amazing. That's what I've heard, anyway. Yeah. So there is an element of exploration there, but there's really no diplomacy in that game. There's really no exploitation. Do you know what I mean?
I can get behind you definitely on the diplomacy side of things.
Yeah. But while Jim was talking, I was reminded of another. I never really thought of it as a 4X game, but it kind of is. Have you guys ever played the Seven Kingdoms series?
Long time ago. Yeah.
Because basically you start off with one town, and you're surrounded by all these independent towns, and you're surrounded by other empires, and there is a fog of war. I think D-Man's just trying to piss me off. He's asking if Orion is a 4X game. D-Man. No. Come on. I just put a Wikipedia in there link describing what a 4X game is. Come on, man. I got like 5 hours of sleep. I don't have time for this. Or patience. I'm sorry. Are you gonna ask random games if it's a 4X? I don't have the patience right now. Oh, that was mean. I'm sorry, D-Man. But I just put a link right there. Right there. Anyway, sorry.
Is Half-Life a 4X?
But the Seven Kingdoms.
Well, Half-Life 3 could be. Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
Someone has to explore it. Someone has to explore to find it. I'm sorry, D-Man. I'm just a bit, yeah. But Seven Kingdoms it was an RTS where you explored a map, you conquered or bought or influenced towns to join you, but it had an amazing espionage and diplomacy element. Do you guys remember that?
No,
Not as well
many
as you.
years ago.
Oh, okay.
I remember you could like masquerade as somebody in like to the other town and wander around in it and stuff.
Not only that, like there was one time where I had a spy recruited into another empire's army, and then they got promoted to general, and then they got promoted to king, right? And then I just switched sides to the spy back to mine and just took over without firing a shot. You could do that in that game. It's amazing. But someone, I forget who, already mentioned Distant Worlds. Very different. How about Sword of the Stars? I would say that's a fairly unique.
That's easily in my top 4.
Oh,
yeah.
It's so good. Not the second one, folks. Not the.
The second one might be good, but nobody can figure out how to play it. So.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like every time I've tried to play Sword of the Stars 2, it's like trying to play a 4X in reverse. It's like you know how a lot of 4Xs you click a ship and then you tell it to go to that system? I think with that game, it's like you have to click on a system and make a mission for a specific ship. You know?
Well,
so
it's a
like,
fleet. You have to have a flagship, and then you put
yeah,
ships with it,
it's
and then
so
you assign a mission to the commander of the fleet. And it's just like, you know what? I just want to select a stack of ships and tell them to get the fuck over there. That's really all I want to do. I don't want to have to micro. All
exactly.
It's a cool idea. It didn't work.
It's a great idea, but it was like the first game was so elegant and so efficient. I don't really.
Yeah, it was. Okay. If we get into what 4X games don't make you want to kill yourself when you try to play multiplayer, I would say, yeah. So it's one, right? But you have simultaneous turns, so you still end up waiting on people, but everybody's taking their turn at the same time. You can put a timer on it, and really your turn's not all that complicated. So
no, it's not
so bad.
It's kind of like Master of Orion 1 almost with
very much, because you just got a couple sliders, right?
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
Do I want guns or butter? That's the slider. And then it's like, oh, I can pick something on the tech tree. All right, I picked it, and I'm done. Right, so you can do a 2-minute turn. It's okay. And then let's see, like Sins of a Solar Empire is probably the best of them because that's a real-time game. Stellaris is right behind that, although Stellaris is sort of a moving target right now because that whole game changes every time I play it. Every time they patch, it's like, hey, here's a different game we called the same name.
Well, you also play it like at each patch, like you don't play it continuously.
Right. But boy, the patches really do change things.
True.
So you end up in that syndrome, right? Of like, well, I played it, it's not quite there. I'll wait for the next patch, right?
Or the next expansion, or the next DLC, or
Well, yeah, they usually coincide. So it's but it's one of those things, right? Where it's like, exactly what we do with Elite, right? It's like, hey, there's new beta. All right, everybody log in, check it out. Okay, and we're done for 6 months till they put another one out because it's not there yet. But Stellaris could be something, right? And but the thing that it's got going for it is it's real time. And as far as turn-based things, they got to be simple because you got to be able to take your turn quick. Because as we found out, especially with Galactic Civilizations 3, whenever we tried to play that was miserable because there's like 50 turns. Nothing's going to happen because you're researching something. It's going to take 50 turns and you have nothing to do because you have no ships. So click next turn. And then I got to wait on you to click next turn. And then you got to wait on me to click next turn. And it's just like, wow, this is deadly. Eject.
It's great in single player, which is really kind of a shame about that game.
That's why I think the board game aesthetic of every turn you do something meaningful, right? These games need to compress down to like board game sensibilities.
Agreed.
You're going to do something this year, and every turn's a year or something.
Yeah, and and in the single player of Galactic Civilization 3, you definitely have those choices. But for some reason, the multiplayer doesn't work as well, which is really a shame.
Well, but then you feel all the empty space in between, where single player, you just hit next, no big deal.
But 4Xs are also such huge endeavors. Like, can a multiplayer...
It's hard to get it right.
Yeah.
It's hard to get it right.
Yeah.
I mean, you see something like Birth of the Federation, and...
Did that have multiplayer?
Yes. I played it in multiplayer, LAN multiplayer.
What?
And, yeah, it had it. And... you would have occasionally, in the early game, you'd set up maybe the one scout ship, and then you could send it off to go explore. But then after that, all you're doing is setting up your research and then building more ships. And late game, you could take 15 minutes for a turn because you have so much micromanaging to do. Which is unfortunate.
Emperor of the Fading Suns had that same problem, but it was more of a memory and buggy issue than a micromanagement issue, which is a shame.
Ultimately, I feel that the perfect recipe is Distant Worlds universe with Stellaris's UI and multiplayer.
That'd be great. Yeah, give me the.
Couldn't argue with that.
give me the depth and everything in Distant Worlds with a cleaner UI like Stellaris, or maybe even Endless Space 2.
Or compress it down, Space Tyrant.
Oh, yeah, maybe. Space Tyrant's great. If you all haven't played that one, by the way. They call that one a 5X, which we'll get to. Let's see.
How many X's is it, Bob?
The X's. And they live in Texas.
But another one that Spaz and I were talking about before the show, and it's like really close to the Civilization formula, and yet it has so much of its own flair that it like hasn't really been emulated well, is Master of Magic.
Indeed.
Well, a lot of people have tried.
They've tried.
It's like the XCOM story.
They have tried.
Yeah.
Like how many near misses before you finally get the one, right?
Yeah, they've tried. Like I think the Age of Wonders series has gotten the closest.
Yeah, Age of Wonders gets tedious though, man. The combat, because it's like little individual dudes you got to run around. It's like some people dig that. Okay, but I would just much rather auto resolve that crap, because it's like I'm playing the map. I'm not playing the tactical battle.
Well, and there was Worlds of Magic, which just unfortunately failed.
Yeah, and then there was another one, right? Which is it's like Worlds of Magic. I think it's like maybe the same game renamed.
Planar Conquest.
Eodor? Planar.
Is that the same game? It's just renamed and finished.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Is it good?
What I've played
really.
Is okay. It's not super great or
not
anything,
great,
but like if you want something that kind of looks and smells like Master of Magic but isn't, that's probably the closest.
Right. Worlds of Magic was with the Kickstarter. It was supposed to be the spiritual successor to Master of Magic, and it just I was disappointed in it.
Yeah, a lot of people were. I remember, which is a shame.
Since Master of Orion is basically the core that this whole genre spins around. I mean, yeah, you could say Civilization because it was first, but Master of Orion's really.
You can even go earlier than that. You can go like Imperium or
Empire,
or Reach for the Stars. Remember Reach for the Stars, the original. But there was another one. I can't remember the name.
But I would say if you say classic 4X game, then people are going to be like, oh yeah, Master of Orion, pretty much.
It's the go-to, pretty much.
Yeah, it's going to be one of them Simtex jams.
Yeah, and Simtex got so much right with all their games. Like going back to Master of Magic, one thing I always love about that game that, sadly, no one has ever tried. No one has really. I don't know if they've tried to emulate and just failed. Master of Magic was horribly imbalanced. It was not balanced in any way. And that's what was great about it. Do you remember some of the crazy ass spells you could learn? That would like just change the map?
Yeah, it was basically just like, I am the wizard, submit or die. And it's just like who got there first. And you definitely, once you had a spell that just dominated, that was it. But the computer could do that to you too. So it wasn't as harsh about it. It could have been worse, but I had it happen. I've lost a few.
Yeah, same.
Right.
And there were some crazy things you could do. Terraform the map. You could create islands for your units, floating islands, so that your units can travel across the sea. I mean, things like that. There was a lot that you could do with it. Plus, you had the above and below levels. So you could do stuff in the underground that affected what was above.
Oh, God, yeah. Which is something, thankfully, Age of Wonders did successfully copy. But let's see.
Yeah, so what about the Warlock games, since we were speaking about Master of Magic and stuff? Warlock's pretty decent.
Yeah, they're kind of fun if you like if you look at it like more of like a I see Warlock as more of like a conquer the map one hex at a time game. It's much more war focused, but it's good. I enjoyed both Warlock games. You know, they definitely have a tighter focus than you know, D-Man, we're gonna play a game with you in the YouTube chat. Throw us a game and we'll tell you if it's a 4X or not. Planetary Annihilation is not a 4X.
Not even close.
No. It's a real-time... That's more of a traditional tactical real-time strat... Even though they call it real-time strategy games, they should call them real-time tactical games, but that's just me picking hairs. Because they're not really strategic, usually. Unless you have that map mode, which I wish more games did. But anyway.
What about Custer's Revenge, the tactical 2600 game?
Oh, Jesus. Yeah.
That only has exploit in it.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
As in, it's exploiting the player who paid for it.
Pretty much.
Anyway. Let's see. We've talked about every one I have on the list here, except for...
the freaking Dungeon Keeper games are damn near 4X. Like War for the Overworld kind of really approaches that, right? Because you're not trapped under the ground. You can pop up and just kill people.
I guess on a very small, much tighter scale, much smaller scale, you could, because there is exploration.
You're not, it's an asymmetric thing because you're not competing against other empires like your own, right? I mean, there's some modes in some of these games that you do, but for the most part, it's very asymmetrical. But yeah, it's just a random thought. You know?
No, that's a good one.
I'd say it's adjacent, at least. At the very least, adjacent, if not in the genre.
So the last one I have on the list that I thought was unusual for the genre are the Imperialism games. Did you guys play those?
I'm trying to remember. I think it was Pax Imperium or something.
You're probably thinking, yeah, Pax Imperia. There are two of those. One of them
neither one was great, right?
No.
Imperia 2 was better, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think you can get the second one on GOG right now.
Well, there's one that's on Steam. That's the first one, right?
No, I think that's also the second one. If you're thinking of Imperium Galactica, both of those are on Steam and GOG.
Okay.
But Pax Imperia is a slightly different animal. I guess there's that. Did you guys ever? So Imperialism, for those of you who don't know, is a colonial 4X where you can play on like an actual world map, but they also have random maps, and it's far more economic and diplomatic focused. Like there is fighting, but you're kind of supposed to avoid fighting. You're supposed to like pay off the Indians so they'll join you. You know what I mean? So those were amazing, and they're still, because of their charming 2D graphics, very playable. Like, I don't know about you guys, but it's hard to go back to like some of those early 3D accelerated games. Ugh.
Yep. No, I'm looking at Pax Imperia Eminent Domain, and yeah, it's interesting. It reminds me a lot of Space Bucks, especially looking at that map. It's like, wow, this is.
It's not though, which is sad. It's not. It's far more traditional 4X, and it's just someone like yelled at me on YouTube the other day, like, "You suck at this game. That's why I didn't like it." No, I didn't like it because the game sucks, and it was that game. It's like this was universally decried mediocre back in the day. Don't yell at me.
So was the Imperium Galactica games better then? Or
I thought
Pax Imperia wasn't greatly loved. Right?
Oh, I would say those are fairly unusual because the first game, especially, you start off as like a lieutenant with just a few ships and one planet and one city. And as you gain in rank, you gain more ships, but you also gain the ability to colonize other planets. So it kind of gates it as you go, as you learn, as you rank up.
Sounds like Starpoint Gemini Warlords.
A little bit. And the second one is a little more of a traditional 4X, but it has ground battles. It has real-time tactical space battles. A little better diplomacy and espionage. It was my favorite the second was my favorite 4X for years until Distant Worlds dethroned it. So those are both great, and thankfully the great folks at THQ Nordic have improved them. So if you buy them on Steam or GOG, they will most likely run on Windows 10, 8, or 7. Unlike when I tried to run my disc version and it crashed every third turn. Or whenever I would look at the ship design screen. So annoying. Getting old games to run, y'all. But moving on to the next topic. It's more of a question, and I'll throw it out to you guys as well as the folks in the chat. Why do you think so many, especially Space 4X games, try to be Master of Orion 2? I mean, Master of Orion 2 was a hit, but was it like a hit so big it deserved to leave its shadow on the genre for the next 20 years? You know?
Well, it's got that mechanic of moving your workers around, right? You have X number of population, and then you divide them into 3 silos, and that's your tech, your production, and your food, right? So it's kind of like, well, that's a pretty simple formula. It's easy to replicate, and for the time, it was perfect. And if you do more than that, you're just doing the same thing but complicating it, I guess. But then again, I like the original Master of Orion, where it was just a couple of sliders and you didn't really worry about how many people were working as janitors and what.
Yeah, I was getting in a yelling match today on one of my forums because I said that I like Master of Orion 2. I mean, Master of Orion 1 more than 2. Because I think it's just a much better design in terms of gameplay. Master of Orion 2 got so micromanagey, you know? So
yeah, it was pretty rough late game. It's, you know, but then you had to micromanage the combat and everything too, right? So honestly, I think the best combat for a 4X is not in a 4X. It's gratuitous space battles would be the way to go, right? Because you build these ships and you stick them in a formation, and it's hands off. They do what
you just have to hope it works.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that. It's like that electric football. You put your players down, and then you hit the button, and they just run around, and you hope something happens. Yeah, I'm from the 70s.
I'm just trying to think. I think there have been at least 1 or 2 4X games that were like that. I just cannot remember what they are at the moment, but there were some where it's
I think it's like too many of them. They try to give you control, even though that's what's going on. Then they give you control. Yeah. And then it's like, well, my guys are kind of dumb, and you know, it's like I would have got a worse result if I'd auto-resolved. Instead, I want to go in there and actually play the battle out because I can do things that will exploit the pathfinding of the enemy AI or whatever, which there are ways to do. You know, if you can determine real quick how their pathfinding works. And then it's like, oh, I can make you chase one ship while I shoot you from behind with another one. I can lead you into traps all day long. And that's why I don't like that stuff, right? Because then it becomes like I'm fighting the other guy's code. I'm not dealing with just the numbers that are on the screen.
Well, in a 4X game, do you prefer games that have tactical combat or games that don't? Like
nope, I auto resolve everything damn near all
so
the time.
You prefer to stay on the strategic map where you don't have to zoom down.
Yeah, like sometimes if it's a cool battle, I want to watch it,
right?
But I don't want to actually control it. I'm not playing an RTS.
I agree. Again, that's one of the reasons I like Distant Worlds so much. But I mean, I think when you include tactical battles, you're really trying to make 2 games at the same time. And I think I worry that when you split your focus like that, you know,
Endless Space 2 gets it right. Which is an extension of Endless Space 1, right? So it's just like your ships jump in, their ships jump in. You play an order card. It's like, all right, be defensive or be offensive or be whatever this battle, right?
And you get more orders as you go through the tech tree too.
Yeah, and it's just the basics of this is going to play out how it plays out, and I get to watch, and I don't really get to intervene, but it's going to look really good. And if I want to watch it, I can, and I can skip it if I don't. To me, that's how it should be, especially if you're playing multiplayer.
I have to admit, though, have to admit, though, with Birth of the Federation, that the one thing it did right that was really awesome with it was its combat. Because the orders you could give in battle actually did affect how you fought. And you had to keep in mind the facings of your ships and how they would fire. So if you were broadside with a Federation ship, you couldn't use your torpedoes. It wouldn't work. Then again, in the late game, when you had 50 ships aside, it was just a blob. So it didn't really matter so much.
Right. Sorry, I'm getting work messages right now, and it's really distracting. I apologize.
Yeah, me too, actually. That's funny.
Oh, no. That's not good. It's much later where you are.
Oh, someone's having problems with the VPN. Oh, no.
Oh, jeez.
What did you guys think of Endless Legend, by the way?
I like I like it
that
more
was
than
one
Endless.
I didn't get a chance to dive into.
Oh, I think it's better than both Endless Space games. I'll be perfectly honest. I think it's far
I
better.
love it.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
because it's
fantastic.
almost a little bit of D&D going on there, right? It's like
little
your hero,
bit.
like a character, and then you go around and do quests. Because if you're not doing quests, you're losing.
That's one thing I love about that game is that like it's not so unfocused. It gives you things to do. You know, like most Forex games, like I have to research, I have to build. Like you're making your shit up as you go. But Endless Legend, like you need to do this right now. Oh, great, that's good. I want that kind of like point me in a direction thing.
Yeah, not only do you need to do it, but you got 10 turns to do it, so you better hustle.
Yeah, I've got it on my wish list. I really want it.
Oh,
When
well,
the Endless Legends collection goes on sale, snag it.
yeah, and there's
the Emperor edition's on sale for like $14.
That's pretty good, but I mean, there's a big
Is
sale
that all
coming
the
up.
DLC?
I'm not sure if it's all of it, but there is a big sale coming up in Steam in a couple of weeks, like the Lunar Sale.
Well,
they're
the
calling
Endless
it.
Legend collection right now is on sale for 66% off or $23.
Where?
On Steam. It's like Endless Legend is on sale right now for the entire collection, and then you can buy the Endless Universe collection for $45.
Which is everything.
It's just everything.
Sorry.
Yeah, I see the Endless Legend collection for $23.79 currently, which is not a bad price for it because it's all the DLC.
Oh, that's actually a fantastic price for all that stuff.
Question: do I have time to play it all with all of my other games?
Yeah, hang on a second though. It's
Probably not.
Hang on
worth getting.
Hang on a second though. It's not the historical lowest price. The historical lowest price for this package is $10.
Yeah, a year ago. So I'll wait.
I know it was a year ago, but I'd say it's great, but you can wait for it to get a little cheaper. You know, I think if it was that same price now, like $10, I'd say absolutely put it in your cart, like right now. But like, it's more than twice its lowest historical price, so nah, you can wait. But it's great because the tactical combat is actually pretty streamlined, so it doesn't take too much time like Total War or or Age of Wonders. But it's a gorgeous game. It's got lots of varied factions. Yeah, it's great. It's really a fun, probably one of the better non-space 4X games in the last few years, I think.
And it's in the same universe as the other Endless games, which means there's some carryover between the lore. Actually, there's a lot of carryover.
There's a lot of carryover. Yeah, if you play these games or Dungeon of the Endless or Endless Space 2, there you'll see lots of shared lore between those three games.
It's all about that dust.
Joe in the chat asks if Wing Commander Armada is a 4X.
Absolutely not.
I don't think so. It doesn't. There's no diplomacy. There's no like espionage. There's no way to exploit it. Maybe it's a 3X. But are you expanding? Yeah, you're expanding. I guess you're taking over planets and mines and stuff, right? So I guess that would be more like a 3X. Because there's no diplomacy. Like at all. It's just fight to kill Rathi. You know, right? I think. I haven't played Armada in like, I don't know how long. But that
so
was
what about the Total War games?
I mean,
that depends. Like,
yeah,
that drastically depends. The problem with the Total War games is most of the time you're already playing on a predefined map that you're conquering.
Well,
I'd call them grand strategy with the RTS combat element to it.
Yeah. But you don't necessarily see what the other people are doing either, right?
No, but neither would you
fog
normally in a 4X game, though.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So it's kind of 4X in that way because there's a big cloud over the map.
That's a tough. God,
you're on.
It's a tough call because it has diplomacy. It does have some exploration. Definitely,
yeah, but I wouldn't call it enough exploration. Like,
that's
it's the uncovering of stuff that's already there. Like,
the map is static. It's not
right.
going to be anything.
Which is what I was going to say. Like, there's a great homeworld mod that is called the Complex mod, and it's very close to making it 4XE, but it's definitely more 3 to 3.5XE.
That's fair.
Really, I need to try that. Is it for?
It's pretty great. It's a pretty great mod.
It's for the remaster. Oh, I see. It is for the remaster. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll have to check that out. Because I would love like kind of an expanded kind of homeworld. Like, let me jump around and.
You get like morale experience and customization.
Ooh. Yeah, Jacques on YouTube says there's no exploring in Total War, which
if you're American and you don't know your geography, it is completely unknown territory. I have no idea.
Well, but still, like if you're playing Rome Total War, shocker, you're not playing in Spain. You know, you're not.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, you're not playing in Australia.
That's true. That's true. It's tough because, I mean, exploration and discovering the map is such a key part.
Well, and that's the other thing, though. Like, if you're doing exploration, does that mean that you're exploring something that you have zero idea what's there? Or is the exploration... Because it's like, you know, I know the general geography of the United States, but I can still go and explore a city that I've never been to.
Yeah. God, that's a tough one.
I mean, that sort of brings up something like Starpoint Gemini Warlords, where the map can be static, but the placement of where those objects are within the map can vary from game to game. Plus, there's all the anomalies and other stuff that doesn't spawn unless you are close to it. So there is an exploration element, and there's definitely an empire building element, especially as you get later into the game.
Right.
But the exploration isn't the focus of it. It's still a major element, just not the focus of the game.
I have a hard time thinking of Total War as a 4X game. I think of it more in the Europa Universalis type grand strategy game type of thing, but with real-time battles.
That's where I classify it.
That's where it gets pigeonholed in my mind. What about you, Jim and Hunter? What do you guys think about Total War? Would you?
Borderline.
Yeah, it's close. You know, it's real close. That's a real good.
I don't know. It's the kind of game I dig. It's you know that I will play the battles in most of the time. But even then, right? I mean, it's like, well, Total War. It's all about the battles. Why would you ever auto resolve? It's like, well, if I got a stack of a zillion dudes and he's got like 5, I'm gonna auto resolve that. Because it's not worth the load time to go to the map.
Yeah. I just can't stand that. I don't know. Is there a Total War game that lets you save while you're in a tactical battle? I don't think there is.
I don't know.
No, that's no.
Yeah, That's mid-turn, and it saves at the top of the turn.
See, that annoys me because sometimes I have to stop in the middle of a battle to go do a chore or leave.
You just fight faster.
You can just pause the battle
and just leave it running? That just seems weird, doesn't it?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, you just pause the game.
It's like your Nintendo, man. You got to leave it on all.
Remember
true.
like those days back in the day trying to beat Sonic, and you're like, shit, we got to go to the store with mom. I got to put this shit on pause 4 hours later.
That's true.
Gotta go fast.
I did that once with F-19 Stealth Fighter. I started a mission before school and just let it paused all day because I was in the middle of it.
Or when you get to save your game on a cassette tape on your VIC-20 and it takes like 20 minutes.
Oh man, how to save games? The media episode of Space Game Junkie.
Back in my day, we had cassette tapes, and we were thankful. No,
had a big reel-to-reel.
Speaking of Forex adjacent, what about Mountain Blade?
Oh, see, I don't.
With Warband, you have less exploration, but then as you build your empire, you can actually do a lot more than just go around in combat because, well, you have the empire building element to it. Exploration's still there, though. Especially with quests.
Here's an interesting thing, though. If we are to say that exploration includes exploring a map that may be static to the game but not static to what we know about it, I think that could qualify, because that also opens up the door for games like Empire at War and Rise of Nations, and there's even Global Conquest mode and Command & Conquer 3 Kane's Wrath, for example. So
I mean, I would say that falls under the Forex adjacent, but not necessarily in the genre proper.
I'm gonna be honest, I've not played Warband. I played the first Mountain Blade a little bit, and I was so terrible at the combat, I just never went back.
And what's funny about this, that Wikipedia thing says games with additional 4X modes says Wing Commander Armada.
Does it?
Well, in our face.
It sure does. Oh god. It says
every now and then the internet dunks on you.
According to the Wikipedia article, list of 4X video games. Games with additional 4X mode towards the bottom's like Star Control 3, Emperor, Battle of Dune. Apparently, Star Wars Battlefront.
Wait Emperor Battle for Dune is not a 4X.
Apparently, there's a campaign mode that makes it so.
Okay,
There is a campaign mode. There is a campaign mode in Emperor Battle for Dune, and I have the CD sitting right on my desk right now, but I would not call it a 4X.
Yeah, it's basically calling a lot of these RTS games with metamap modes 4X games. That's a tough one.
Well, here's the interesting thing, though. It says Battlefront and Battlefront 2. It's hard to say Battlefront and Battlefront 2 because there's no diplomacy there. Even in the Galactic Conquest, you don't have any of that.
Well, just because you hang 4X on the name of a game doesn't mean it is one.
True.
I know this.
Yeah, I don't know.
Worst 4X game ever.
Basically.
Because it's not a 4X game, even though it says 4X in the title.
Oh,
that's right.
We won't say what it is.
That's just
we shall not call its name.
We won't name it, but it ends with 4X.
A game that shall not be named.
Let it go. It's okay. It's okay. Shh. It's okay. We don't have to talk about that. Just
what about Off-World Trading Company?
That's more of an RTS.
Yeah.
I mean, that fits stronger into the RTS genre because although there's some exploration, the maps are predefined as far as the distribution of resources, but the rest of it can be procedurally done.
Yeah.
As in what it needs, what the game needs at that moment.
It's calling the Dominions games 4X games, this list. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I guess it could work. Any of you guys played the Dominions games? They're crazy. They're insane.
Yeah, I got 3 and 4. 5 just came out.
5 just dropped like a month or two ago, and apparently it's better than 3 and 4 because there's a better UI and blah blah blah. It's like, yeah, I'll get it when it's on sale.
Yeah, you know what that game's great at is play by email.
Yeah, that's how a lot of people play it, I believe, is play by email. I think that's how it's most often played, actually. So let's see what's next on our.
It's the only game where you can actually play Cthulhu.
So another question I came up with that I'd like to talk about is what we'd like to see more of in 4X games. And you did touch upon some of this, Jim, earlier with better diplomacy and whatnot. Did you have
diplomacy makes some sense
to work, right? To actually, work and be meaningful?
Yeah, I just want them to remember the good things that I did and remember the bad things and, like have their own interests. Right.
Here's the thing,
but not behave randomly. Like, hey, we're gonna trade with you and pat you on the back, and then we declare war the next turn. No.
Yeah, even if they show that, even if like they show that they like you or they're whatever, like that might mean nothing. Like I remember the first Endless Space game, like I had a enemy that would like, we declare war next turn, we sue for peace. We declare war. We're just gonna sit here on your border and declare war and sue for peace every other turn. Like what? What?
Yeah, or the war where they send like one frigate a turn in your doom stack.
Right. Yeah, good job in that war.
Like I got a stack of 20 Titans here. Why are you sending one frigate every turn?
They're sizing us up, man. Don't worry, they're gonna send a big fleet soon. Wait, it's another frigate. What? Why are you doing this? Why?
I always use that as the example because that's the goofiest damn thing I've ever seen happen to me.
Which game was that? Which game was that? Because I remember playing a game that did that. It might have been Endless Space. But there was
I think Endless Space 1 definitely did that.
I know Endless Space 1 did that. I think there was another game that did it too. Oh, as much as I love it, Ascendancy. It would do that. Because the AI in that game, I love that game, but the AI, even with the AI patch, is just terrible. You get a patch that says the AI is better. No, it's just more aggressive. That doesn't make it better. I agree, though, because so few games get diplomacy right. Like, remember the intricate diplomacy in Emperor of the Fading Suns? Like, oh, God. It was like multiple options you had to choose through to get to your proposal. And it could be so detailed. Ah. And oh my God. Why that game never took off is just a crime. Like why, I mean, yes, it was buggy. Yes, it had a weird UI. But
it had a lot going on.
It had so much going for it. Oh my God, it had so much going for it. And that kind of brings me to the thing I was thinking of. When I think of things I'd like to see more in a 4X game, I think of character focus. Like, we keep saying how much we want Crusader Kings 2 in space. And very few games have given us that. Like, sure, we have Star Wars Rebellion and
well, in terms of character, there's Drox Operative, which is a 4X played around you.
Yeah.
But that's adjacent to the genre, not in it specifically.
Right, but I mean, with Rebellion and with Crusader Kings, you had characters that were meaningful, that did things that affected the game. In Drox Operative, you are that character. So
you are the motivator for the universe. Although, if you don't really do anything, the universe will still move on without you.
Mm-hmm. You can just sit there and fight off whatever attacks you, and the other empires just do their thing. Will just totally do their thing. By the way, folks, if you haven't played Drox Operative, you need to. What was that, Hunter?
I was gonna say a better sense of ownership and progression. I don't know.
Can you expand? Can you expand on that? Like, what do you mean by that? Like building space stations?
The thing with 4X is it feels so. I mean, yes, it's like more on a grand scale, But I think when I think of like the character like the character thing, I'm thinking of something more detailed about the the person that you are inhabiting in
Right.
these games, I guess.
So you want something more like Starpoint Gemini Warlords, maybe, where you're a character in the universe and you're much closer to the things that you own?
This is the thing. I don't know Forexes as well as I do other games. So like the thing that's really cool about the Total War games, for example, is the lineage stuff. So like you have your family trees and you have the different royal lines in a lot of different senses, like that kind of thing. More sense of ownership, I guess. More sense of like I'm leaving a lasting legacy in a game.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Like, if I'm building up a dynasty and an empire, I don't know how many of these Forex games have that kind of ability. Like, I know Crusader Kings definitely does.
Yeah.
Like, but I don't know how Forexy that is.
It's more grand strategy. Like, yeah, you're absolutely right.
If I could mix that element into a 4X game, I would like really be into it.
That's a good point. Like, usually there's no persistence from game to game or from empire to empire. Usually you just build and build and build, fight and fight and fight, and you're done. So you have a point. Like kind of something like Rogue Legacy, maybe, where but in a strategy game, where you rule for a little while, you die, but you have what you did last time, and as your child takes over.
Well, to an extent, there's Space Tyrant where you have that meta game going on.
See, I haven't gotten that far in Space Tyrant, but that is a thing.
That is a thing, yeah. As you go through the missions, depending on what you unlock, that affects your future gameplay, because those unlocks carry over.
Okay,
so your choices
that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. But, I mean, I kind of see where Hunter's coming from. Like, say you build this great empire with all these stations, and then the game ends. Okay. Like, what about all those stations I built? What about all that work I did?
Yeah, I mean, a legacy element would be interesting.
That would be.
Add on to that.
Yeah. No, I get that, man. Like, I built this thing, and I'm proud of what I built. Let me just keep playing.
Now, on the board game side of things, there's the small world games, which sort of do that, which is you have an empire, and then you choose two traits, one for the race, and then the trait of that race. So there can be things like undead trolls or something like that, or undead orcs, and then you're playing with that empire for a while, and then eventually the empire fades. And then you have to select a new empire because your empire goes into decline. So once you select a new empire, that sort of builds on to what you had before, that the other empire sort of takes over part of that territory, and you start building back up again. And then eventually that goes into decline. You keep on going through, and fewer choices go on as the game goes through. But that sort of thing in a 4X, in a digital 4X, would be really fun.
I agree.
Granted, Small World 2 already has its digital component. We need to play that on a board game night. But that's aside.
Oh, no, I would like that. But yeah, something like that where like there's a sense of persistence, there's a sense of like how interesting would it be if a 4X just stayed in the same universe? Like, instead of randomly generating a map every time, it's a massive map that you're just always a part of. That'd be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And therefore
Could be.
And then everything you've done is persistent. Everything you've done is, there for the universe to see, or be destroyed, or be built upon. That'd be great.
And then to take from the small world angle, eventually the empire has to go into decline at some point, and then
exactly
and then you take on as a new empire
and build on the ruins of the last one. Yeah, build on the ruins of the last one. Yeah, exactly. That would be. I mean, I can't imagine that would be an easy game to make, but That'd be a fascinating game to play. Jack is saying there are a couple of board games that do that. Sword,
Yeah,
Sword and the Stars.
Yeah, there's legacy games that are built along that line.
Okay, yeah, the Sword and the Stars from 1981, and Empires of the Middle Ages from 1980. He's suggesting are board games that kind of have that element.
To an extent, Stellaris has the fallen empires in it, but you can't actually play as them.
Yeah, they're aren't they I never got super far in Stellaris, but aren't they things that are basically meant to make the end game more exciting? Basically,
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Though in theory, taking on that idea, if you have that, your fallen empire is an empire that you previously owned, and you're an upstart little empire within.
Ooh. Oh, that'd be great.
Then you are going into the territory of the game Defect.
I was just thinking of Defect. Yeah. It's a good point. No, I like that. Defect had a great idea. You know, I wasn't so sure about the game itself. I'm sorry. But it was a great idea. It's a great idea.
Oh, the game itself is fun.
It was fun it did get repetitive, but
that's true, yeah.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do? But that was a fabulous idea they had. Like, you have to fight yourself, basically, so don't build too good a ship. That was pretty fun. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Like, there isn't like a persistent element in a lot of 4X games. But then I got a lot of games. Like, what are games that have like things that like stick with you throughout your tenure in a game or multiple tenures?
That would fit most of the games under the roguelite genre, just because there is that meta to go.
That's true. A lot of games with a persistent like unlock or a persistent like ability, tree or whatever. Yeah, like I can see that, like roguelikes. But not every roguelike, just ones with like, oh, you died, but you have enough experience to level up this one thing. So you level it up for the next game.
Starfleet Armada has that.
That's right, it does, doesn't it? Write that down. Which is an amazing game, by the way, if you all haven't played it. It's only $10. You should buy it.
Do not judge it on its UI.
No.
Do not.
No.
There's so much going on under the hood with that game.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Game's brilliant. Brilliant, I tell you. But yeah, I guess one thing that I've always wanted to see in a 4X, I would love to be able to like maybe, like, you know how in a lot of 4X games, you can choose someone to be a governor of a planet. I would love to be one of those governors.
Lords of Waterdeep.
Oh yeah, that's another game we need to put on the list.
Wait, what? What's this?
So in Lords of Waterdeep, you know like how when you play, as an example, Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
And you essentially go into like a tavern and get a quest, right?
Sure.
Well, in Lords of Waterdeep, you play the people in the taverns giving the quests, basically.
Wait, what?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. So it's basically you're hiring adventurers. It's like, oh, I need to do this thing. Well, I need to hire like one warrior and one thief to get this done.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's worker placement. And so as you're sending them out to do these quests, you're hiring them and then you're spending them on quests. But you have other ways to gain them back. But you only have a few things you can do every turn, so every choice matters. And of course, you don't know what the other player's goals are. You don't know what they're trying to accomplish, so you don't know what's going to help them and hurt you, or vice versa.
So you're vying for control of Waterdeep, essentially, Waterdeep Harbor, and you're going to be like the master. So essentially, you're fighting for control to be the governor, I guess. Wow. It's interesting. It's an interesting game. You'd like it, Brian. You'd really like it.
I think I'm gonna.
It's easy to pick up.
I think I'm going to get this on the next sale. This looks, I mean, I think I wishlisted it because it looked interesting and then I didn't think about it again. But, wow, this looked, wow. Yeah, that's a, like, I guess that's what I'm getting at is like a lot of 4X games have the same angle. You're like this kind of disembodied emperor thing. You're not even like a person. You're just this disembodied thing that tells other things what to do and where to go. Like, there's not a lot of character. There's not a lot of like role playing. It's just moving units, and I would like a little more texture. I would like a little more character. You know, and this is great. This looks.
You'll enjoy it.
I forgot there was a digital version of it. And I'm like, you guys are what? Oh right, I wishlisted this forever ago.
I got it as soon as it launched.
Is it good in single player?
Does the digital version?
Oh, it is great. It is solid, and you can play against the AI if you don't have friends to play with. So it's a good way to learn the game.
But we do have friends to play with.
Indeed.
Now,
I'm picking this up on the next sale. This looks great.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna move this up my wish list to like the top spot so I don't forget about it, because that's exactly what happened.
The DLC is kind of, you don't have to play with it in order to enjoy the game. It just adds other options.
Oh, Skullport though, come on.
Hey, I'm not saying it's bad. Don't get me wrong. I got the both, but I'm just saying you don't have to. You can play the base game first and see how you like it before you add those in.
Yeah, I'm moving this to the top of my wish list because this looks awesome. Really does. It looks awesome. So that's really... Okay, Cooper, I saw you and other people talking about Distant Worlds 2. We really don't know. We know it's in production. It's been in production for a while. There was like some kind of event that Slytherin just had where there were a lot of people around a table looking at something on a screen, and it looked like what was on that screen was the next Distant Worlds game. But that's really all we know. I think they know that it's going to be like a hot property once they announce it. So they're probably keeping it close to the chest until it's near ready, which I cannot blame them on. I just hope it's got a scalable UI so people with larger monitors don't complain about how tiny everything is. That's like the biggest complaint I run into nowadays when I tell people to get. It's like, does it go above 1080? Oh, no, it really doesn't. I'm sorry. You should refund it because you're not going to be able to read anything. It's such a shame.
That's 4K, not 4X.
Nice.
Good one. That was very good. So the last thing we're going to talk about are games that use 4X concepts but aren't entirely 4X games. And we've mentioned a couple already. Like we've mentioned
there's a lot that fall into that then.
Right, but we're talking like fairly close, like Drox Operative, you know, which is a 4X game, but you're not playing the 4X game. You're playing like a mercenary in the 4X game.
I got a bomb for you, Brian. You're gonna hate me for this.
Yeah.
EVE Online.
Would you say? Okay, so I don't know a lot about EVE Online, folks. If you're not aware, I've recently gotten sucked back into EVE Online in a big way, and we had a really fun
shockingly so. I'm surprised in you.
It's the agency, man. All they needed was to give me some direction and show me things to do. That's all I needed. But how would you classify EVE as having 4X elements?
There is strong diplomacy. Like, boy, howdy is there diplomacy. It's interesting because it's 4X on a different level. With one exception. The exploration is kind of there in the sense that the grand map is there, but then you also have the wormhole elements, which each time you go in through a wormhole, you never know what you're going to go to next. It could be another wormhole, it could be known space, it could be high sec, it could be low sec, it could be like an even worse wormhole than the one you were just in. So there is levels of exploration, but not to the extent of a 4X. Now, where it's very much on a grander scale of a 4X is the fighting for control. Like you have people in nullsec who are fighting for like essentially control of territory, because people can claim territory. Like player corporations and alliances can actually claim systems in nullsec and become the rulers of that space, essentially. And that's where you get all these great wars and people fighting for different control of everything. It's like the 4X that literally never ends. Okay. But it's done on a grander scale, right? Because you're essentially a foot soldier being part in the grand scheme of this ever living universe.
I dig it. So there are larger, like, because most of what I know about Eve Online is player driven, but there's also a metagame going on, like kind of behind the scenes as well. You're saying, where there are empires doing their thing as well.
Right. Well, I mean, you have the NPC empires, which are always doing things, and there's lore stuff with that happens in the background. Like a few years ago, the Amar Empire crowned a new empress, and there was actually a tournament to see who was going to be crowned the new empress, and players, actual people, fought in this tournament on different sides to help crown the NPC empress. It was a cool event. There was a lot of really cool things that happened during this time. Lots of lore stuff that went on. But then there's even let's take a look at the Imperium. The Imperium is a coalition that was like founded by Goonswarm, which Goonswarm was a very famous Eve corporation alliance.
Right.
And they have like their own website now that's got like news articles that come out where they do reporting on things that happen in the game. You have other big great alliances like Test Alliance, Pandemic Legion. All of these are big famous names that have come through this game and set like a precedent that a group of players came together and do. So instead of it just being one person controlling a game, and some would even argue that there's like tinfoil hat, that there's someone outside of the game actually pulling the strings and funding the stuff, but those are all just rumors. There's nothing 100% sure on that kind of stuff. But I've read some interesting theories that there's like backers that don't even play the game. But anyway, the point is there's a lot of 4X elements to this thing, but like on a grander scale.
That's interesting.
Like if we wanted to, as our like that we would get any far with it, we could get a whole bunch of people to come join us and then go out and try and take a nullsec system, and it would be our system and we would control it. And it would have our name on it. It would say, like, you have entered the Space Game Junkie like system.
Yeah, I think this reminds me of what our next topic should be, by the way. I think we have to have one show where we just air every grievance we have about Elite Dangerous. That's the entire show. I think that's what we need to do. And because the more I play Eve, the more I realize what Elite's getting wrong. And it's like, by the way, Joe just gifted me Lords of Waterdeep.
Oh, perfect. Beautiful. It's a great game, dude.
How nice is that? Thank you, Joe. That's
happy late awesome. Christmas.
You did not need to do that. I am humbled. I am a little verklempt because that was really nice. You did not need to do that, so thank you. You're a new dad. You need all the money you can get, but so thank you.
I'd even go as far as to say that EVE Online is probably like the greatest 4X game that's out there.
I mean, it does have exploration, clearly. It's my favorite thing. It does have extermination. It does have... Clearly. Found that out really fast in Wormhole Space the other day. I had to make a clip of that. That one moment. Dude, should. It was so funny.
Hey Brian, you should dock up. Too late.
Just as I had just clicked dock, dude, like a second before I got killed. Like, that
was really funny.
It was really funny. Like, oh no.
Oh, wait. I forgot to tell you. I scanned down yesterday. I scanned down a site in Coma and ran it. And the last thing I did was blow up the building that was at the center of it. 50 million ISK. Just
holy garbage. That's amazing.
Yeah, dude.
That's amazing. That's wonderful. I want to do more stuff like that too. Oh, it sounds great. Anyway, yeah, I'm a little addicted right now. Now that I have things to do. I mean, there were always things to do, but now they've added this PvE finder, which is just exactly what I needed. Oh my God, it's brilliant. It's utterly brilliant. I wish they had added it years ago, but I'm glad they have it now. What else are we going to talk? We've talked about Starpoint Gemini Warlords, where, folks, if you're not familiar with it, it's at its core, it's kind of a freelancer-esque space combat game, but you could take over stations, you could take over planets, you can build stations, you could take over areas of the map, and there's definitely exploration. Like, the map is huge in that game. Huge. And then
you got your fleets to control.
Yep.
And you can have them come in and as a giant blob as you take over sector after sector.
Yeah. Yeah, folks, if you haven't played Starpoint Gemini Warlords, it's really the pinnacle of the series. And it definitely has a very strong Forex element. Another game I wanted to talk about that I played it recently. Shut up, Eric. Orion is not a Forex. God damn it. We've been over this, you son of a bitch.
Avorion, I would. It's got a couple X's.
It's a couple X's. Yeah, it's a couple X's.
But I wouldn't say it's got diplomacy in the slightest.
That's so funny. But one I was going to bring up, I don't know if you guys saw the videos I did of it a few weeks ago. It's an older game called Warpath. Have I told you guys about these?
Oh, hold on a sec. Cooper, you're right. I am just into Eve. I love it. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But he's also right.
So he's also right. But Warpath is a Forex game, but instead of sending out fleets and doing all the scouting, it's just your one ship, and your one ship does everything. Your one ship mines, it colonizes, it fights. It's really a unique take, I think, on the Forex, because you're your own empire, but you're down in the thick of it, doing all the fighting and doing all the mining and doing all the selling. And I've never seen a Forex game where to take over inhabited planets, you invest in them. And if you invest enough in them, they love you. And if they love you enough, they will join your empire. And it's actually really great. And it's got multiplayer. And it's free. If you guys ever want to try it. It's really, really a different take on the Forex genre, I think. It's so fast-paced because you can't sit still for a minute. You know? You got to always be moving. Always be closing. You know,
gotta pop up those numbers.
Yeah, you gotta fight off the bad guys coming into your sectors and trying to take over your planets, because they can invest too and turn a planet that was yours against you, which is really frustrating. So that's amazing. Eric, were you serious about Avorion? I hope not, because someone brought it up earlier as like asking about 4X games, and we laughed about it then, and I thought you were joking about it. But if you're serious, we love Avorion around here. It's just not a 4X game. That's a good... Yeah. Space Word Ho is actually a great example of a really quick playing 4X game. Kind of like Space Tyrant. Kind of like 10-Minute Strategy. Where you have these really distilled experiences. And you can still get that on tablets, I think. I think you can get that on iPads. I'm not sure. You can't. I don't know if you can buy it for the PC still. But I know you can get a mobile version of that now. But yeah, Spaceward Ho, guys, if you haven't played it, is really like a 4X game pushed down to its essentials. You know, it's great. Like I think there's two resources. I think there's metal and energy, and I think that's it. And so you need more to build more ships to take over more planets. Kind of like Galcon, but better. I've never been a big fan of the Galcon games. So, what
I was going to say in terms of games that are also adjacent to the 4X genre, there's Space Rangers. I mean, granted, you're only controlling your one ship and maybe whatever drones you have with you, or maybe the mercenaries you hire, but there is still a 4X being played around you.
That's an excellent point, because you have not only the Rangers and the various empires, you have the Dominators, you have the Pirates.
Yeah, the various factions are doing their stuff. You still have exploration. You can support whichever faction or factions you prefer.
That's a really good call.
And they have different relations to you, depending on how you have done things with them before.
Now, that's an excellent... I can't believe... I didn't think of that one. I'm a bad space game junkie. I can't believe I didn't think of that one.
Come on, Brian.
For a second, I thought you were talking about that flight sim that Jim and I love, the Star Rangers or whatever it was called. I'm like, wait, that's not a 4X. Oh wait, that's not the one you're talking about.
Is that new like Power Rangers thing?
What? Power Rangers?
Bad joke.
Oh, sorry. I'm very tired, so we're probably going to wrap this up in a minute. But, yeah, so I think we've talked a lot. I think we've hit a lot of good points about what we'd like to see in a 4X. 4Xs that are different. Folks, if you're not wishlisting a lot of these games, by the way, you should be. Because there's a lot of good stuff here. Talked about unusual 4Xs. I think we've hit pretty much all the topics I wanted to hit. Was there anything about 4Xs that you guys wanted to vent about that I missed?
No, it would be kind of cool to have infinite exploration, but then again, you might get something like No Man's Sky, which has procedural exploration, and then a lot of it ends up being kind of same-ish.
Yeah, I think... Going back to Distant Worlds, I think that's one of the reasons I love it so much, is because with a lot of 4X games, you reach a point where the exploration stops. Like, you've explored the map, there's nothing new to find, it's now just take over what you found and dig in and expand and whatnot. But with like a game like Distant Worlds, the maps can be so huge that there's exploration ships going even into the late game that are finding stuff. So I think that's, for me, exploration is my favorite part of a 4X, and so any game that can keep that going as long as possible is a winner for me. So, yeah, and again, Starpoint Gemini Warlords is great with that. Drox Operative is great with that.
I mean, granted, the maps are finite, but still, there's a lot you can still explore even into the late game.
Yeah, exactly.
Depending on how big it is to begin with.
Exactly. So, and again, EVE Online, another great example of always exploring. You know, there's always stuff to explore. Always be exploring. Apparently, Captain said after 5 hours, No Man's Sky got really boring, which sounds about.
It's not for everybody.
It's really not for everybody, but the people who like it, including myself, I'll keep going back to it.
There is something there now. There definitely is something there now, and I've been meaning to go back to it.
I'm waiting for the multiplayer update. And once they get synchronous multiplayer, I will dive right back in.
Have you guys ever heard of Shores of Hazeron? That sounds familiar. Someone in chat.
Oh God, no. That's an MMO. Wow. That's not an RTS of any sort. Or 4X or anything. Do you remember?
This looks insane. Do
you remember the bug that I made in an MMO that had like the giant "Hello Ladies" smile on it? It was a big purple.
Oh yeah, I
caterpillar.
remember that.
That's Hazeron.
It's apparently still going.
Really?
But
It is. Yep.
This guy in the chat, Shame Goldblum, I wonder if it's pronounced Goldblum, he's saying it's a 4X. But a 4X is a strategy game. Let's see. Does it have exploration? Pay to play, download. Is there a thing where I could just get like a... Okay.
This is 4X's Elite is.
What is with... Okay, so the tour is a slideshow, like a picture. What is happening here? Okay, I'm not... This is painful. What is going on with this? Status. Okay, I need like... Someone needs to explain to me what the hell this game is.
One thing I'd love to see would be the crew aspect of a game like Pulsar or Quintet, but with a 4X added onto that.
Oh, interesting.
So you as your ship, as the crew of your ship, you're controlling the Empire from your ship. And then the rest of it happens around you.
You should try Warpath. It's very close to that. You know, there's no crew element, but it's your ship making the Empire. So it's all focused around your ship.
I'll take a look.
Yeah, you should. It's really great. Cham is saying that this Hazeron thing is an empire builder, like how Dual Universe wants to be. I'm not convinced just yet. I'm looking at the wiki right now, and this looks kind of insane.
Yeah, so I mean, you can design your own spacecraft. You fly around, explore the universe, whatever. Yeah, I don't know, man. I can't penetrate that thing. It is so fugly. I can't even.
I don't mind fugly so much as I mind usable. Like, I need a good UI or else I'm not going to play your game.
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff people have made in Hazeron is pretty amazing looking. I'm looking at like it looks like somebody made a flyable Minecraft Enterprise, right? Cool. But I don't know, man. I started out, I was on like Bug World and I'm wandering around and it was like ick. But I guess if you get into the building part, like if you manage to penetrate it past the first couple hours, it might be pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm really confused by this website. Doesn't really. Okay, Cham is saying the main developer of Shades of Hazeron mentioned he's almost making enough money to cover server costs and plans to hire a graphic designer. Ho! Well, then. Yeah, because I'm looking at these images and I'm like, what is going on? That's a rocket on a planet. That's a window. That looks like a mall. I don't understand any of this. How is this a 4X? It looks like the bar from Privateer. What is happening? Anyway. I'm so confused. I might look at this later. I don't know. Anyway, folks, that should wrap it up for us. A couple programming notes real quick. Thursday, because Hunter has been nice enough, because how many computers do you have right now, Hunter? 18, 20, 40?
Something like that.
18,000. Hunter has put up a Mech Warrior Living Legends server. And
it's going to be called Mech Game Junkie.
Ooh. We did try to start a site called Mech Game Junkie, but we didn't have the time.
But there's a Facebook page.
Yeah, but like we have no time for it. It's like I have enough.
Well, we'll make the time.
But yeah, Mech Warrior Living Legends is a free game. It's a Mech Warrior combined arms game, basically built on the Crytek engine, and we've played it once or twice before, and it's actually pretty goddamn amazing. So, like I said, Hunter.
Well, I mean, if we can get enough people, we'll play on my server. If not, if it's only going to be a couple of us, we'll just jump in on one of the other public ones.
We'll make it work. I'm not too worried about it. Last time, I think the first, or was it the last time we played, like a bunch of the devs joined the Discord and everything.
Oh yeah, that was great.
That was pretty great. So one way or another, I can't imagine there'll be a problem finding people. There are a lot of people who work on this game. So that's
linked it up in stream chat if you want to grab it. Go in there and
start downloading it now because
it can take a while.
It's 9 gigs and sometimes the site's slow.
Yeah, what I'm gonna do is like as soon as we're done recording and streaming, I'm gonna start updating the game to make sure I have the most recent version because it might take a while. So that's what we're gonna do on Thursday. Next Tuesday for the podcast, we're recording at a different time than usual because our guest is overseas and he specifically requested it. We're going to be talking to, I think it's the lead developer of Angels Fall First, the first person, what the hell would you call it? Shooter, fighter, flyer, tanker. It's another combined art.
Natural selection.
It's like another combined arms game, really, but it's got an RTS element.
The spiritual sequel to Battlefront that we wanted.
Yeah, I think wasn't that one of their big inspirations? Was Battlefront 1 and 2? Yeah, the original. Yeah. That's if you guys haven't played Angels Fall First, they just did a big update on it, and they just did a small marketing push, which means they're actually getting more players. So now is a great time to jump in, even if you already own it and forgot about it, or if you want to jump in, it's a great time to jump in. So that's on next Tuesday's podcast. And the final show note is that don't forget, folks, every month on the last Sunday, we do a MMO meetup. We just had our first EVE Online MMO meetup that was about 3.5 hours long, and we had a blast. We did just a bunch of randomy bullshit and had a really fun time doing it. Actually,
it was a good time.
It was a really good time. I got blowed up
Brian
a couple times.
Died, we all laughed.
It was really funny. It was. I'm gonna have to, once I have some time, I'm gonna have to separate that clip out so people can just laugh at me.
It's, you know what? It's almost the equivalent of watching me boost into a docking station elite and blowing up off the back wall. I don't know if you guys remember that clip, but that's around somewhere.
Oh God.
Remember that, Brian? Remember when I boosted past you? And
hey, watch this. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
I remember. That was the featured video on the channel for quite a long time. Until I replaced it with my hilarious attempt at shooting asteroids out of orbit and then crashing into one. As I tried to shoot it.
You crash into asteroids? Impossible.
Oh, just wait for the next couple privateer entries. So mad at that game. But folks, and finally, I'm trying to do this more often. We have a Patreon that helps pay for the server costs for SpaceBaneJunkie.com. And other things we have to pay for, like Evolve and whatnot. We don't have to pay for that anymore because they shut that down. But anyway, we have a Patreon. Did they
bring it back? Did they shut it down again?
Well, they brought Evolve back, but they shut down the monthly like $5 thing.
Oh, right.
So they're not charging us for it anymore, even though I still get the perks of it. They're not charging us for it now. So I was mistaken there.
But with Patreon, though, we are definitely looking at ideas for more tiers.
Yeah, we're looking for sweat. Once things slow down in my life, probably in the next couple of weeks, I'm probably going to look at making some swag and making some more tiers. We have a Patreon. Even just $1 will definitely help because the site is expensive to run. Because it gets just enough traffic that I need a premium plan for RAM and whatnot, so it doesn't crash all the time. I'm not even kidding. So Patreon. I want to thank especially the folks who have already subscribed to us on Patreon. Can't love you enough. If you are a subscriber on our Patreon, you get access to a special Discord channel that's just for you. If we get up to a certain amount, we're going to have regular Patreon hangouts. And we're also talking about, this was your idea, Hunter, a special tier where you can actually give us ideas for the show and come on the show. I think you called it a producer tier, which is a great idea. So we're probably going to do that. I want to thank everyone who's already supporting us on Patreon. And if you haven't already, We lost a lot of Patreon subscribers when they decided to change things without telling anybody.
And then they changed them back, and people didn't fully realize.
Yeah, and people haven't realized.
And people just haven't come back.
Right.
So, yeah.
And the final thing, I'm going to say this again because I'm still writing to people who don't realize that this podcast is not just on YouTube. A couple days after we record live, MP3 version goes out that you can put in your podcast catching program like iTunes or Pocket Casts or whatever you use. And you can go to spacegamejunkie.com for all the links for that. You can get it on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher. I think there's a couple of others. So there are multiple ways to listen to this show. And if you have any suggestions as to a guest you'd like to hear or anything, don't hesitate to throw that our way. We love suggestions. So thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for Patreoning. We would do this if no one listened, but it's better when people do listen because you people make this better. And the more of you there are, the better it'll be. So thank you so much for listening and subscribing, and we will see you next time. Have a great night.